Text functions are used to manipulate non-numeric data in our spreadsheets. Here is a list of text functions that we will learn in this class. There are many other text functions in Excel, but we are only going to focus on these. Let's look at some examples. In the far left-hand side of your screen, in cell A2, we have a phone number, and in cell B2, we would like to display only the area code. We are going to use the function called left. The left function returns the number of characters specified starting from the beginning of the text string. So we are typing in equals left A2. The text string happens to be in cell A2. You could also just put a value in there for that argument if you would like. And the second argument tells you the number of characters you would like to pull off from the left side of the text string. And in this case, we want to pull off the first 3 characters. So in cell B2, we see 614 displaying. Now let's look at the bottom of the screen. We have the phone number in cell A2, and now we want to pull off the exchange code. We will use the mid function. The mid function returns a specific number of characters from a text string, starting at the position you specify. It has 3 arguments only. They must be in this order. First argument is the text. It can be a cell reference or it can be a value. The second argument is the start number. Where do you want to start in that text? What character do you want to start with? And the final argument is the number of characters. How many characters do you want to display? So in cell B2, we type in equals mid A2. A2 is the phone number. We want to go to the 4th position in that cell, and we want to pull off those 3 values. Let's look at the top right-hand side of the screen. We have the phone number in cell A2, and now we want to determine the length of the value in that cell. We're going to use the len function that returns the number of characters in a text string. The syntax equal len, and one argument only is the text value. The text value can be a cell reference or it can be a value itself. And here we're checking A2 and the length is 10. Let's look at another example at the bottom of the screen. This time we have the value Nancy in all upper case letters. What we want to do is capitalize the first letter of her name. We will use the proper function. The proper function capitalizes the first letter of each word. It has 1 argument and 1 argument only, and the argument is the value that you would like to or change. The value is Nancy, and so we want to capital N, so we're using cell A2. Here's another example of a function called concatenate. The concatenate function joins up to 255 text strings into one text string. The syntax equal concatenate text 1, comma text 2, comma ellipsis. The text values are what you want to concatenate. In cell A2 we have the value Nancy. In cell B2 we have her last name. And what we'd like to do is concatenate those 2 cells into one cell. So we will use the concatenate function. Equals concatenate. We want to concatenate the value in cell A2, comma. Notice the quotes. We have a space between the quotes because we want to put a space between the first and last name. So A2, comma, quotes for space, comma, B2. which is the last name. And notice in C2 it concatenates that value. Let's look at an example in the middle of the screen. We have a phone number in cell A1, and what we would like to do is separate that phone number with hyphens. We use the concatenate function. The concatenate function in this scenario has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arguments. The arguments happen to be other functions. The first argument is the left function. It's going to go to cell A1 and pull off the first 3 values. The next argument is a hyphen, so we'll concatenate the hyphen to that value. The mid function is going to go to cell A1, start with the 4th position, and pull off those 3 characters. The next argument is a hyphen, so it will concatenate the hyphen to this value. And the final argument is the mid argument, or the mid function, and it goes to cell A1, goes to position 7, and pulls off the 4 characters. Now what I would like to do is I would like to take an example and walk through this with the file that you receive, or a file that is sent to you via the internet or via email. And many times this will happen that you will receive information from a different source. And when you import that information or get that information from that source and put it into Excel, many times the information is not usable until you manipulate it with text functions. Now what I would like to do is walk through these slides, but I'm going to show you this example in Excel. So you can walk through the slides as I show you the example. Here I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I receive this text file from a vendor every day. So let's say I get this text file every day and I need to download it in Excel, and then I will do whatever I need to do to process the worksheet. So the first thing I need to do is import the file into Excel. How do I do that? Well, I click on the Data tab. I click on Get External Data. This file happens to be a text file, so I'm going to click on Text. I'm going to go to the location where the text file resides. I'm going to import it. I'm just going to follow the prompts here. And now I have imported the file. Okay, so I've imported the file, and the file looks as you see at the top right hand side of the screen. The problem is I really need the file to look like what you see at the bottom of the screen. So I know I'm going to need to use some text functions to manipulate my data or my text strings to display in Excel the way I want it to. Well, how do I do this? Well, there's no correct or incorrect way to do it if you get the final answer. So given the knowledge that I have with Excel, I know there's an Excel feature called Text to Columns. But in order to use this, I need to have all the information for the company in each piece of information in the cell. No, excuse me. I have to have it all in one cell, and each part of that has to be separated by a comma. So now I have to think outside of the box, and this is what we're trying to teach you in this class, is to learn outside of the box, or think, outside of the box. Now, while you would do this, I would write down the steps as you complete them so someone else can do the task if maybe you're hit by a bus, or you leave the company, or you get sick, etc., etc. Okay, so let's start thinking about this. And when you do this yourself, you're going to have to really think about it. And it will probably take you a very long time to get this to work. That's why you want to write down the steps. But once you do that, it will be much easier. For example, let's say this file contains 100,000 records or 10,000 records. You're not going to go and change all of this yourself manually. It would take too much time. That's why we're going to find a way to do this using a text function or many text functions. Okay, so observation. This is what you're going to have to do is observe the information, the data that you see, and try to manipulate that data. So given the knowledge that I have, I know the first thing I want to do is concatenate the information for each company into another column for one company and then for the second company, and I've just chosen to use column B1. I'm using this work area to manipulate my data, and then I will copy the finished data over into a spreadsheet or the usable form of the data. When I look at this data, I notice that some of the cells begin with a space. And I know the text to columns function will not work properly if there are extra spaces. So what do? Well, there is a function called trim, and the trim function takes out any unneeded spaces. So I use the concatenate function, and I use the trim function within that concatenate function. So I use equal concatenate trim A1. So if there are any unneeded spaces in cell A1, it will delete those when it puts this over, when it concatenates the value into cell B1. Then I have a comma, and then in quotes I have another comma because I want to separate my values using commas. Then I have trim A2, which is going to take cell A2, trim off any spaces, and concatenate to the values that I have already. Notice in cell A2 there is that space, and we need that space to be deleted. The next argument is a comma. The next argument, I'm going to trim cell A3. Then I'm going to have a comma. Then I'm going to trim cell A4. So if you notice in cell B1, now I have all the information I need. But the problem is, all other rows have extraneous information. It's not usable. So now I have another dilemma. How do I get that to work? How do I fix that? Well, I know there's a function called write, and that function will pull off the rightmost values of from the specified number. So here I say equals write B1 comma 5. I type this in, and notice in cell C1, if I pull off the last 5 digits, there's a hyphen 2079. What am I trying to do with this information? Well, if I looked at the information, what I noticed, and let's go back, what I noticed is that the rightmost digits of all the valid records have a hyphen, or a hyphen, and then last part of the phone number. So I know I can use that to identify my valid records. And you know what I want to do is I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet because that's where I wanted to be in the first place. And I want to really do this as we talk about it. So let me go back here. And in cell B1, I'm going to use the concatenate that we had talked about. Okay, I'm going to fix this because I kind of messed up here. Okay, Just going to make cell big B1 auto fit it. There I go. All right, I'm going to just make this smaller here so we can take a look at what we have. Okay, so notice here we have the hyphen 2079, so I know I can distinguish all the valid records with that hyphen. How do I know that? I just observe the data, and it's trial and error. Okay, at this point there's several ways that you can probably pull off this data. I'm just going to do a couple of steps to get the data ready to be pulled off. So I'm just going to use the equal find function, and I'm going to find everything with a hyphen. And it's going to be in the first position. Anything without a hyphen is going to display a pound value error. And again, this is an easy process. You know, it would take you a lot of trial and error to get to this point. But when you get to this point, just think of all the time it's going to save you in the future. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, and again, this is from experience, from just thinking about this, is I'm going to take this and I'm going to convert it to a table. You, in this, you have learned about, or you are learning about, the advantage of tables and how to convert an Excel file to a table. Okay, I want to convert all of this. Click on yes here. It says it's going to overlap some external data ranges, and we don't care. Okay, so now notice this. I'm not sure what happened here. Let's start over. Should have converted all of this to a table. So let me see why. A1 to A76. I'm going to say my table does not have headers. Click OK. Okay, let me pause this and see what's going on, and I will come back to this. Okay, I need to highlight everything for the table. I'm not sure why, because if you just click on cell A1, it should automatically tell you what values to use or what cells that you want to use, and then you can change it. But we'll just do this. Click here. I'm going to click OK, and I just selected the whole. I want to go back. If you noticed, I just clicked up here at A through D, selected the whole column, even though it only goes to 76 to row 76. I just selected it all for ease of use. Okay, your selection overlaps. That's okay. Say yes. And that's okay. Say yes. All right, now I have a table. And notice the arrows. We're going to learn about database concepts. And when you create this table, Excel's going to act, look, and feel like a database, because you can do many things with this table. You can filter data, you can sort data, there's several things you can do, and you're learning about them, or you will learn about them in one of your labs. Okay, so one of the things that I want to do, and again, you could do this another way, but it's just so much easier to do this with the table. I am going to filter out or select only the items in column D that have a 1. Because I know all of those items are valid information, valid data. I'm going to click on the arrow. I'm going to take off the select all. I'm going to click on the 1. I'm going to click OK. Okay. And now I have just the values of 1 in column D. And that's all the valid information. Okay, so this is good information. So what I'm going to do now is copy all of this information, and I'm going to paste this in another spreadsheet just so it's easier for me to work with this. Do you have to do it this way? No. And you might be able to figure out a better way to do this, but this is just the way that I decided worked best for me. This is bold. I'm going to just take this off for ease of use and, well, for formatting issues actually. Now we're going to actually use the text to columns wizard, which will convert all of this text into separate columns based on a delimiter. And a delimiter tells Excel how to select the data and how to separate it. Okay, I've clicked on data, text to columns. Okay, and it's going to be delimited. And what did I decide to delimit this with? At the very beginning, I decided to use a comma. Okay, I'm just going to make this smaller for now so we can take a look at what happened. Actually, I'm not. Okay, it did just what we wanted to do, except for column D. Okay, column D has California 91723. It didn't separate it. Okay, well, why didn't it separate? This is something I hadn't anticipated. Well, if we go back, and I'm going to turn off this filter and select all. If we go back, what we notice is the original information didn't have a comma between California and the zip code. So now we have a problem. So let's go back and solve it. Again, let's think about ways we can solve it using a text function. Okay, this is the way I've decided. You can do it any way you'd like, but for me this was the most efficient way to do it. I'm going to column F, and I'm going to type in the left function. I'm going to trim it to make sure I don't have any extra spaces. I'm going to pull off the first two values to the left, and if I could type it in right, I'd be okay. I'm going to put a parenthesis here and copy it down. Now I have the state in its own area. Let's do the same thing with the zip code. You could have used the left with this. I'm going to use the right function. At least I think you could. Should be okay to use the left. Yes, you could have used the left also. Now I have the zip code. Okay, if you notice, I have formulas in here. So I'm going to copy all this. Actually, I guess I could just cut it. I'm going to, you know what, let me do this first. Let me insert a column between D and E. You could do it the other way. It would make, I mean, you can just copy it in, but it's going to make it easier. Or insert and cut and then insert a column, but it's just easier for me to do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to highlight all these again. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to paste values because I don't want to paste the actual. Okay, it's not letting me here. Maybe I just need to select just this. Cut it. Okay, I know why. I don't know why Excel does this, but we actually have to copy and paste. Don't know why, but we'll do what it tells us to do. I'm going to delete G and H. Going to highlight these because green triangles are unprofessional. And what is this saying? Convert it to a number. Remember, the computers are stupid. They don't know if we want to store this information as a number or text. The general rule is if you want to use your information to calculate anything, then store it as a number or your numeric values. If not, store it as a text. And the reason why, one of the reasons, is because if there is a 0 that comes before the number, so let's say if this was 091723, the 0 would not be displayed. And in this case, it's a zip code, so we really want it to display. Not that I know of any zeros in a zip code, but you know you understand the concept. All right, so I'm going to ignore this. Now, look at this. I have valid information that I can use. Wow, that was a huge amount of work, huh? But it's better than fixing 10,000 or 100,000 cells. But wait, wait, wait. As the infomercial says, we can do better than that. We can create something called a macro to automatically do these steps. In our next lecture, we are going to create a macro with this information, and then every time you receive this text file, all you have to do is run the macro. You click on one button, and all of this will happen at once.